Hello and welcome to Practical Inclusion for Wednesday, what is the first day of March. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I live, work and play on, and pay my respects to the elders past and present, and a big shout out to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are joining us today. Also a big shout out to Todd Fernando, who is the Victorian Commissioner for LGBTIQ plus communities, and who also made that top 20 list of LinkedIn voices in the LGBTIQA space today. Check him out. I was very privileged to meet Todd at the Pride game recently, and he always has amazing things to say. But also meeting him and spending a bit of time mucking around waiting for photos, realise what a great sense of humour he has too. But what he has to say around the intersectionalities of being queer and Aboriginal is also something that really search out his words on that, because it's really poignant. Cathy, would you like to acknowledge the country you're on before we get started today?
Sure, I'm on Darra country, so I work, live and play here. I'm not going anywhere. I actually love being at home. So ever since moving out here, so for those who don't know, Darra country is part of Parramatta, or Parramatta is part of it because Darra country is quite big. And there's just lots of lovely trees and lizards and animals around here. It's been raining so much here, so I'm not surprised if I'll get a pet lizard or pet snake soon, because there's just a lot of lovely animals around here. And as you can probably tell, I love animals, so I can't stop talking about my pets and all that. I know my son's not listening, but I'd rather talk about my pets than him.
I'm all for talking about pets. Today my pet got told off by my son, and so since then he has been hiding in the cupboard, sleeping in a box. So I think she realizes stealing the cheese off his plate was probably not a great idea.
Wait, your human child or your fur child was in the box?
My fur child's in the box, but maybe the human child should have been in the box.
Yeah. Theoretically, we are all in a box, in a house, in a room. But anyway, I'm just.
That's true. Thank you for joining me today. We've been trying to connect because I've been really keen to have a chat with you about all the things that you're amazing at. But also I think there's some really great topics we're going to cover today. Would you like to start us off by giving us a sense of your story, why you do what you do? And yeah, the platform is yours. Let us know a little bit about Cathy.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations, Bree, for being on the top LinkedIn voices. When I saw the top LinkedIn voices, when I saw your face, I was like, oh my God, we're going to talk to a celebrity soon. But it's amazing that there are so many familiar faces there. But I mean, it's no surprise to me because there's just so much. Sorry, that's my dog. There's just so much great work out there, and it's just so humbling to be amongst so many fantastic people. So just want to start off by saying congratulations. One day I will make a list. One day.
Absolutely.
A good list, not like, the top 10 serial killers.
Aspirations.
Yeah. But a bit about myself. Started my career in human resources, then moved into internal comms, corporate affairs, started my own copywriting, content business. So now I'm consulting to various businesses, startups, while also running my startup called Keynoteworthy, which is it's kind of like a speakers agency for underestimated keynote speakers. So I started that about 2 years ago, just with the mission of providing visibility and a voice to people who don't get selected all the time, but yet they're amazing. And it was just born out of frustration of going to so many events and conferences as part of my job at that time, which was part of media, to report back on all these conferences. And it was just so frustrating to see the same faces all the time. And I always say, look, I am in no way kind of reducing their achievements or anything like that. I'm sure they've worked really hard, but I think it would just be more meaningful if we have other voices there to share their own perspectives. And I think that's also, the activist in me too. So when I was in my human resources career in corporate, I was usually the only one. So probably not the only woman, but the only Asian. And then also when I did communication, again, the only Asian. And I just felt really self-conscious about looking different, even though I was born in Australia and had, education here. And then I just thought, I know that we're all born with privileges, and I acknowledge that I am so privileged to be in this lucky country. But yeah, there are just so many missing voices, and instead of thinking, oh, how sad, I just wanted to do something about it. So I think throughout my whole life, it's just been about that mission and that value. I just remember because I did like debating and public speaking in school. And when I was 13, I talked about racism. And I went to a Catholic school, and you can imagine these competitions. I don't know if you've ever entered them in school.
Yep.
All Anglo-Saxon.
Yep.
Because like my fellow Asian class members didn't want to do that not because they weren't good, but because they just didn't have the confidence, or there was this dialogue in them that, oh, you're not meant to kind of pursue those extracurricular activities. Maybe you weren't meant to pursue maybe the chess club or whatever. And I think that's where, those self-limiting beliefs perpetuate these stereotypes. But anyway, back to that that competition. So I had so many parents mocking me by making faces. The sarcastic kind of face, like I'm trying to imitate one of the parents, but I can't because it was too long ago. But basically it was this never happened. Or, what are you talking about? I just remember a little 13-year-old me being so passionate about talking about those things. And I think that could be quite jarring to a lot of people, and particularly during that time when it was the 90s, people weren't ready for that. So, fast forward to now in our workplaces, I think people are still not ready to have those conversations about racism and those things. And kind of like there's this denial that, oh, it doesn't exist because I haven't seen it. Or it does exist and I don't want to know about it, because then that shifts the power balance. I think there's always this, no matter what your ethnicity is, there's always this power dynamic. And I reflect upon my own culture as well. So my parents are from Vietnam, and they came here as refugees, and they always taught me about work really hard, study hard, so that you can kind of overcome those power imbalances, if I understand. But it's still there. It's still there. Like, I just remember applying for a few jobs that I was more than enough qualified for. And I had friends who had similar background to me but were even more qualified, but weren't called in for an interview. And when we find out that whoever it was that got it was just, they represented, they looked like the same as the other team. I'm not talking you know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
You know, when people hire, they hire people that look like themselves, and sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's unconscious. And that's exactly what it was. And for us, my friend and I, when we realized that, we thought we can be angry about it or we can do something about it. Because when we're angry at it, we're only angry at that particular employer for not picking us, you know, or we can try to work together to fix the system somehow, bit by bit. Might be skeptical, but it might not happen in my lifetime or our lifetime. But I certainly hope it will happen in my son's lifetime. He's in year at the moment. He's turning 6 soon, so my fingers, toes, everything's crossed. And so, yeah, I'm, being the parent, just willing to do everything that I can to influence that change. And I think that involves connecting with amazing people like yourself and having this conversation like we are today. Because, if other people aren't having this conversation, then
Yeah, absolutely. I've got so many, like, I always write down one words and put a circle around them about the topics I want to kind of drill more into about what the story is. And I've got so many here, so it's going to be hard for me to filter. But like, just literally yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone and we were talking about that exact scenario where there's somebody who has the qualification, sometimes even, beyond qualified for a role, and happens to be of either Black or Asian descent or an ethnicity other than the majority in that particular workplace. And, this person that I was talking to just had that mentality that, well, if they're qualified, then they've got just as much chance of getting the job as anybody else. And it's just shocking that people still think that there is a level playing field and this idea that Australia gives everybody a fair go. And so I wanted to talk to you about what you've described there is, commonly, I think, still in society, the majority of people would see racism just as those, racist slurs on the footy field or, real active verbal discrimination. And I know I've talked to Gloria Tabby about this beforehand, who speaks really well on this topic. Can you explain how racism actually does show up in Australian society beyond the quite overt racial slurs that we hear?
Yeah, that's a really good question because there's all these other microaggressions and a lot of people don't realise. So I can speak from personal experience. Some of the things that people have said to me in the workplace is, oh, I love Asian women. So if you kind of peel back the layers, that's in the context that when they said that, which was at a bar, which was at a social event, it was basically fetishizing Asian women, which dates back into history as well. I'm not going to go into that, but there is a history around that. Secondly, hey, Cathy, what's the best Yamcha dish? So that might be an innocent question, but I'm not Chinese. I don't speak Chinese. I am Vietnamese by origin. So Vietnamese food is quite different or very different to Chinese food. To ask me that is kind of like, yeah, it's just a bit strange in my view. But to that person, they might have thought, oh, all Asians are the same. They will know Yamcha. Positive discrimination, there's that as well. So assuming, oh, Cathy, you're good at maths, right? You're Asian. What else is there? Oh, Cathy, how's your driving? Do you drive a Camry? Are you a good driver? So just the stereotype that, hey, Asians are bad drivers because they have smaller eyes. And the list goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, and the thing is that people, when they ask those questions, and this is what I struggle with, but I acknowledge, is that they come with good intentions. But what they don't realise is that the good intentions favour them, not the other person. So whenever I'm talking to someone, and I slip up as well. Like I've asked a First Nations person, where are you from? But I knew that they were Aboriginal, but what I meant in my head was, what country are you from? But it just came out the wrong way. And to be fair, I had a bit of stuff. But anyway, but I slip up as well. And I apologise afterwards. I said, sorry, what I meant was this. And she was very, very graceful about it. And we had a yarn, talked about our country, my country of origin. For her, she was always here, always will be, always was. So where was I? Oh, yeah, just talking about intentions, right?
I really liked what you said there, the good intention. favour the person delivering the
People
comment.
have good intentions, right? Because that person, let's just say Yamcha, they might not have eaten Yamcha very often, and they thought, oh, this is quite exotic. It's quite different and out of my comfort zone. So I want to ask someone like Cathy, who might be familiar with it. So they come with the good intentions of asking that question. They're trying to be curious. But for me, I might interpret that completely different. And there's this thing I talk about, which is communication filters. So my own life experiences is different to that person. So I judge that situation based on my experiences. So for me, I could have been fed up with being asked those questions all the time. But for them, it was just an innocent question. And I think sometimes I just don't know how to. There's a fine line between educating people and also, like, I don't believe in cancelling people. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. And I have been guilty of that in the past because I was just angry. I was just angry because I felt like this unfairness,
Yeah.
You have this sense of unfairness, then there's resentment. So I think that's what I was feeling. But now I think the more self-work that I do, the kind of like different kind of angle and perspective I have. So perhaps it's maybe asking them, oh, why did you ask me that question? Like, why did you want to ask me? So kind of like questioning people and kind of putting the ball on their court, basically.
Yeah.
Because you just never know what people's reasoning is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what their experience or understanding is too, and their experience around people who perhaps do look different to them. I like your approach there, and I really love that quote. They're good intentions, but they favour the person delivering the comment, and that's a really good reframe for us. Can we talk a bit about communications and the work that you're doing in this space? And you talked about highlighting and amplifying the voices of those who really are missing still in our speaking circles. I can't think of the number of things I've been invited to recently where the panel has definitely still been all white, which I just can't understand and fathom why in 2022 we're still doing that in the corporate world, in the corporate space. Can you talk a little bit about that, but also about some of the strategies perhaps we can use to communicate in this space where, as you say, we're working not necessarily with people who are intentionally trying to exclude or trying to hurt, but how do we build that empathy and that understanding between each other to really move forward in this space?
That's a very big question, Bree.
It is a big question, sorry. And I put a few in there as well.
Package it up. Well, I think it starts with what we do at home. So, how we communicate at home and also our friendship circles. So you all who are listening today, like, just think about your friendship circles and how diverse they are. Are they all the same age? Do they all kind of look similar? Are they all kind of looking like the Kim Kardashians of the world? I don't know. But I found that because when we were in our 20s, friends are everything. And I noticed that when I was in my 20s, they all looked the same. And it was that comfort zone, right? And then so when we go into the workforce, we're going to do the same thing, right? Some of us maybe not, but generally there is still lack of diversity in the leadership space and the speaker space as well. So I think it starts with diversifying our friendship groups and gaining different perspectives. So, you might not agree on everything, and it is hard to love everything in this world, but I try to read things or watch things on YouTube that I might not agree with, because I can probably learn something from that. To give a classic example that's very relevant to us today is the whole vaccination policy, and it's finding that common ground. So all of us, I'd say, 99.9% of people want to have a healthy life. They want to live a life that's free from pain, not just for themselves, but for the family and their community. But the whole issue of vaccination, they might not agree on it, or they might agree on it, but there's that common denominator, which is health for all. So for me, just as a kind of say it out there, I am vaccinated and I choose to be vaccinated. But my brother, who's also on LinkedIn, don't watch this. It's okay. I made it really clear to him. Look, I respect your opinions. I respect your point of view, but I don't agree with it. And I love you because you are family. You are my brother. But please respect my decisions as well. And please do not persuade me to do else. So sometimes it's just having those kind of bold conversations to set those boundaries. But anyway, I think, I always think of it as like a muscle that we need to build. Just having those bold discussions with each other. Giving ourselves permission to stuff up too. Because I've stuffed up. Remember when I asked the Aboriginal lady who was next to me, where are you from? And then sometimes when people ask me where you're from, I get triggered, but she was so grateful. Yeah. So, and I think also we are in a world where it's all about who you know, isn't it? And communication and building relationships is, I hate this word, but it is a soft skill. It's a non-technical skill that they don't teach you in school. And it's something that we need to get better and better at. And if I was to think about my upbringing, where extracurricular activities that were not related to doing my homework was forbidden, or almost forbidden, but discouraged basically. Like I had drama in school, and my parents were like, "Why are you doing drama? Why don't you just do like extension 1 maths or something?" But when we have a range of experiences, it shapes us to who we can be and who we want to be. And I thank myself for going against that, because I was so passionate about it. I wanted to do it, and so I did it. I mean, I could have pushed it a bit more and did other things that were a bit more creative, but I think also there's that compromise as well. So meeting in the middle. So again, kind of like it relates to finding that common ground with people.
I like that. And I have a totally, my situation is almost exactly the same. My sister and I have the same differences around the vaccination debate. And that's a process that we've gone through too, in how we can still have the hard conversations and respect each other's decision in what is a really controversial area and actually has significant implications for how our relationship now plays out in a world where we have such rules around people who are vaccinated and not vaccinated. And so I can relate to that, and I really like that bit where we've got to have those bold conversations, and we have to encourage that more in the workplace, that we're prepared to have the difficult conversations and not just avoid it. You spoke earlier in your story about workplaces in Australia perhaps not being ready still to have the conversation around racism, and I see that in the clients that I work with. When we do some research and consultation and we find that this is a key area that needs addressing, people are dead silent because they don't know how to do it, and they feel really uncomfortable stepping into this space. And I guess I don't fully understand why that is compared to other areas of concern that we might raise, but I know particularly around ethnicity and racism, there is still that real fear as to how to step into that space. Maybe we'll have to wrap up soon, but maybe what would be your advice for those individuals and also the organisations more broadly who perhaps have a workforce that is totally ethnically diverse, but their leadership is not? And so it's very clear that they need to step into this space. What would be some of your advice for them?
Well, they're not going to like this, but it's not about you. So sometimes it's not up to the leaders to be that spokesperson, because, if, let's just say, a white middle-aged man was to talk about being a migrant who he was born in Australia, then I'm not going to relate to you. So choose your spokesperson wisely, and create a communication plan for those things. Like, these things are not the messaging is not kind of picked out overnight. There's a lot of strategy around it. So yeah, just understand that it's about your people, it's about your clients, and it's not about you. Yes, change is uncomfortable. Change is not linear. Change will always happen. So it's just, perhaps they need to do a bit of self-work themselves. And I'm channeling Brene Brown here, but just being vulnerable. Like, I know that's becoming a bit of a buzzword, but it's just giving yourself permission to stuff up. That's what it is. Just saying, hey, I won't get this right all the time. I'm still learning. But I want to make mistakes, and just call it out if I ever make a mistake. And just be very genuine about it. Just say it. Have a literal open door policy or a virtual open door policy. And that leader doesn't have to manage it themselves. Like, I'm just thinking of really, really big organizations. They might not have the time to go through each single message, but that's where a lot of them will have internal comms professionals or HR, where they can help go through those questions and select some of the themes. But if the individual employee is not feeling psychologically safe to share their views, then create a channel where it can be submitted anonymously and provide them with that safe environment. Because, yeah, it is a very interesting time right now, and I know that word has been used a lot, but it truly is. At the moment, a lot of organisations are almost forcing people to go back into the office, and they're not realising that, hey, I'm not going to go back into the office because you never create a psychologically safe environment. So unless you let me bring my dog, there is a company, a marketing agency, that's letting employees bring their dogs in.
Wow. Yeah, that's a real thing, and I'm certainly on board with you there, because I'm seeing so many workplaces have really done that snap back that we kind of hoped they wouldn't. But we need to, I guess, remember what were the good things for many employees about working from home, and what are the good things, and also what might be some challenges for people to move back into a workplace. As you say, is it psychologically safe? We've got a lot of people who were employed during the pandemic into organisations that they've actually never worked in the office in those places.
Never met their employees ever. Other colleagues, I mean. So it's just weird and awkward, and you're forcing people just to go back into the office just so that you can be happy about it. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
No. What are your key objectives to it? I think is
yeah. I've seen organisations mandate, like, oh, you have to be there on Wednesday and Thursday. Well, Wednesdays and Thursdays are more productive. Like, it should be that lens of customer first. Like, how can we service our customers, the best? What's the best approach? And then applying, the location at the end, because location shouldn't be the first kind of, tick off the rank.
No, and we've done so much to create extra opportunities for people, particularly regional Australians, for employment. Let's not, undo that good work. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on today. I know we're right at our time. It was so wonderful that you could jump on and join me. Before we go, a shout out. I've got a survey out at the moment. I'm going to develop a new online course this year, but I want your thoughts audience as to what topics I should actually put into that online course, what one would be your choice. So it'll take you less than 2 minutes. If you get the opportunity, you can find the link in my post from yesterday, and I'll post it here too. If you could jump on and vote on that, then I can create something that you're all that will have the most impact. So thanks everybody for listening in. Thanks Cathy for giving us your time today, and they can find you on LinkedIn. Is that the best place to get in contact with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn at the moment. So it's just so I go by normal name. I don't know what normal name is. I go by Cathy Ngo. But just type in Cathy Ngo and you'll see me.
Awesome. Thank you, and we'll catch you all next week, everybody. Thanks for listening in.